official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar and the Asbury Park Press on December 4, 2019, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building.
Thank you, April. If everybody could stand and salute the flag with a great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody can remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops and their families and all of our first responders. Thank you. All right, the first thing we have on our agenda tonight is for our workshop discussion is we invited Topco here. And just so everybody knows that probably it was about this time last year that Mr. Klein, Mr. Kapalko, and Mr. Langvine wanted to do a project north of 6th Avenue to the river, and they were asking what we thought of the process. And then when they brought a developer in, the developer asked us if the project would work really well if it went down to 7th Avenue. That's when we put out the RFP last September, and we had proposals come in because it was public property that was involved, and we wanted to be above board. So tonight we have Dobco, who was one of them, who one of the redevelopers that put in redevelopment and what their vision for this area would be. And tonight we're going to take a look at it. We're not going to have any action on it tonight. The council is going to be able to ask questions, but really this is for informational purposes only tonight. So the council will be asking questions, but we're going to refrain from any of the public questions. I mean, you'll be able to ask at the public portion of the meeting, but as they go through the process and what they're going to show us tonight, the council will be asking questions. So we're going to step off the dais. We're going to let them present. We have Dobco here, the 3 Ds, Dan, Dave, and Doug. So they are going to give us what their vision is for lack of a better term, either the Seaport Village or whatever, or this area of redevelopment. So we want to take a look at what they have and let the public take a look at it for the first time. So you guys are ready to come off the dais and you can show us what you got.
Showtime. My name is Doug McCoach. I'm an architect and planner. I've been working for about 35 years up and down the East Coast. Also served as a director of planning for my hometown, Baltimore, Maryland. Over the course of my life, I've worked registered in 13 states, worked all up and down the East Coast, but actually also in very, very distant places around the world. This is the opportunity for me to bring that expertise in service of this community. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Seaport redevelopment area and what we believe the community has outlined as an opportunity. Thank you. Through the course of its years of process. And but before we go any farther, I do want to introduce the leadership of the Dobco development team. Daniel.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Moldavic. I'm the president of Dobco Incorporated. We are a company that's been around for about 30 years. All we do is construction, design, build, and development throughout the state of New Jersey, New York, and now Delaware. We have completed over $1 billion worth of construction throughout those 3 states I just mentioned. I'm sorry, I'm kind of tall, so yeah. So yeah, here we go. That's a little bit better. So we've completed over $1 billion worth of construction through the states that I just mentioned. We know very well what it means to redevelop a property. We're in the midst of doing our own redevelopment of a property in northern New Jersey that's roughly 192 acres that will be similar to what we're presenting here in the vision of bringing in a mixed use that includes hospitality, retail, residential, commercial. So we have the wherewithal and the right people on board in showcasing this vision and this plan, and we know how to execute it, which is why we hired Doug and his group from Morris Ritchie Associates. They're professionals in this. They understand what planning means. They understand what it means to the public to get this vision completed. So with that, Doug, you can go on with your presentation and our vision, redevelopment of Belmar.
Very good, and thank you. One thing to note, I thought it was very important to illustrate the many, many towns and boroughs that Dalco has worked in across the state, from top to bottom. This is just a few of the communities that they've done public sector projects, private sector projects. So they know the ins and outs of development in this state and how to work with communities. First and foremost, this is very much Belmar's plan. And I think it's been shaped by a process that's been going on for at least 17 years, maybe longer. We've read very closely the original Seaport redevelopment program, the plan update that was issued in 2003, then its approval, the approved document in 2017, and then obviously the RFP. I think the key to this is that the community's been through a process which has defined all the uses that would be desirable. It's defined the aesthetics, how things should look, how big they should be, how many parking spaces, what kinds of trees. I think it's a very, very tight description of the community's intent. And it's been our position that we respect that, and we use that as a sort of a jumping off point to come back to you to show you what that would look like. I think a key part of this project is the basis for it was the idea that the municipal building is probably due for a refresh, and that there is so there's a public facility that sits on a site which is really important to this downtown, and that through the course of the RFP, this idea of relocating the municipal building so that this site could actually be repurposed in support of the downtown has great value. It's a good idea. That's like urban planning 101. So I think the community was conceived of this project from a very good starting point. What we see and have learned in talking to people and reading is that there's been, for the longest time, a lot of interest in a couple ways that Belmar can be better in how it serves its community. For instance, we would like to see a stronger and more vital downtown business district that is able to support year-round residents and additional commercial activity. That right now, your Main Street is pretty strong, but I think there's opportunities that we can make it more vital, attract more businesses, and make it, I think, a more successful downtown. There's certainly a need for different types of housing product. There's certainly a need to be able to provide places for seniors to age in place in the community and not have to move away. So the fact that we have the ability here to offer convenient and contemporary homes for older residents, I think is an important step for Belmar. Obviously, summertime traffic actually in any shore community is a big deal. It's certainly a big deal here in Belmar. And we have the opportunity to provide parking, not just for the program that's being proposed on this site, but even additional parking to help offset some of the challenges that this community faces in July and August. And I think also, in addition to the parking, we have the ability to look at how some of the streets connect so that we can ease some of the traffic flow. We think it would be nice in Belmar to be able to have a place that you could host a wedding for your family, or you could get together after graduation with your kids. We think it would be nice to have a place where the local Chamber of Commerce could meet. And a hotel would do a very good job, particularly functioning as a year-round center in this downtown district. And we think also that along with the idea of strengthening your Main Street, your downtown district, there's clearly a desire for good grocery, a bakery, chocolate shop, butcher. At the same time, from what I've heard, everybody thinks Ollie Klein's is something to hold on to. And so that becomes a part of this project. And then ultimately, getting back to this idea of the municipal building and the gymnasium, you have the opportunity to have adequate public facilities for public safety as well as for education through this project. So these really become the big goals that you've outlined in all of your process, your public dialogue to date, that we are trying to respond to. And if we're able to do this, it's just going to really, really cement Belmar as its downtown as a landmark destination, and also reinforce its identity as a seashore town. So again, from my experience professionally, Belmar has a remarkable opportunity. You guys have defined it, and it's our job to help bring it to life. You have the potential to have a direct connection from the beach to your downtown in a way that will provide people opportunities at all times of the day to move back and forth, not in cars. You already have a really good promenade, and the idea of taking the stretch of riverfront along the Shark River and extending your promenade so that ultimately it can connect to 5th Street it's what communities do. Smart communities do that, and that's why. So in my experience as the director of planning in Baltimore City, we focused all the time on the promenade in Baltimore, which is 7.2 miles. And how do we handle activities? How do we promote it? How do we keep it clean? How do we make it family friendly? All of these things we think about constantly as we're laying out and doing designs. You guys can have a fantastic promenade. And then ultimately, we have the ability to address the traffic situation, provide parking, and then build on the existing rail connection with an additional mode of a ferry terminal, so that we could provide ferry service that goes up to the city. It's about 38 miles. And whether you want to have a second home here in Belmar, or whether you want to do a day trip up there, the ferry is a really novel and interesting approach, and really could be a great aspect of this project. So I just thought we'd show you, give you an overview of what we're proposing on these 3 blocks, the blocks between 5th Street and 6th Street, and 6th Street and 6th and 7th. So the promenade is anchored by an amphitheater for public events. Closest to the Route 35 bridge, we have the senior residential building. And then facing Main Street, sort of a market rate for everybody building with market and retail and restaurants in the base. And and then another residential building that also has market, and then a hotel facing the Main Street Bridge. And I think when you come over that bridge and you see this building here, it's going to be really an important landmark. And then our promenade connecting across. So that gives you an idea of the sort of the basic organization of the project. But I would like to actually talk a little bit about the most important thing that shapes this project, which is really the folks that use it. We never design in a vacuum. We always design for people, and we always spend a lot of time thinking about what do people want to do? What do they need? And you know, I think that those two ideas translate into an authenticity for a place, and they translate into a place that can be successful for generations, because you know, we've given it a purpose for being that's knitted into the fabric of this community. So we'll talk a little bit about who we think is going to use this place. And we think there are a variety of constituencies, people that would enjoy coming to Belmar, young families for one. These are people who are probably already coming here, and they have a repertoire of things they want to do. They want to go out to eat, they want to have fun with the family. For me, this goes close to home. You know, mom looks forward to early morning yoga, and dad wants mom to be happy. And that's the reality of my household. But so, you know, what are things, family-oriented things, make this experience kind of Belmar important to this constituent, this group of people? Another group of people that is surprisingly inclusive are commuters. It's entirely likely that there's a second home community here in this beach community, where people would like to be able to take the train or take the ferry to the city. Or maybe they're up there and they want to come down here and they have a second home, or you know, a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. So being able to provide for that it's not uncommon that your family could come down to the beach for 2 or 3 weeks. You're off, you're working, and then the weekend you come down to the beach. So we think that that is a population that could be served here and could add to the vitality of your community. The other interesting thing about this group is that they may be car optional. You know, if you have a second home, you're taking the ferry or the train down, you may say, you know what, I do not need 2 cars here. I may only need 1, or just get by with an Uber. So there's an idea here that this is a population that supports local restaurants and merchants, but has a relatively small footprint in terms of, you know, distractions like parking. Another group that we want to target is the sort of the 20-somethings that are growing up, and that they're no longer looking for the big party on the beach. They're actually here with their friends, and they, you know, they actually have a kind of a quiet footprint. They look for a really nice weekend or week. My 27-year-old daughter very much fits into this population. They love the restaurants, they love the nightlife, but they're positives. They're not negatives. You know, they're not bringing negative things to the community. And then, certainly not the least, this is a project for the locals. And I think that, you know, I look in this room as a good example. You know, there are people here who invested in Belmar on a personal level, and they want Belmar to be successful for them, and then also for their kids and their grandkids. And you know, they're looking for variety in terms of restaurant offerings. At the same time, they also want to hold on to some traditions. They like what's here, and they just want to make it a little better. They're looking for an opportunity to downsize, but stay in the community. And I think this is a really important audience for this project, and we would be able to offer, you know, this sort of very close, very convenient, and very accessible types of living circumstances for them. The interesting thing to me, after I put these 4 slides together, is I realized that in my lifespan, I'm about to be 60, I've actually been each one of those groups, and I bet you in this audience, there's a good number of people who go, yeah, I'm one of these locals, or I was here when I was younger and I was raising a family. So if you aren't in this audience, in this group of different populations, I'm certain that you know somebody who would be. The other thing I think is interesting is the picture of the locals there. That's how I felt when we paid our last tuition check to college. And yes, and so immediately my wife and I are like, we need to start thinking about a summer place. So these are the people that would use this project, and they're going to be good citizens and advocates. Belmar. So what do they want to do when they're here? What are their interests? So people are always looking for destinations that have, vitality and richness and things to do. And in our world of development, that's materiality, that's landscaping, but it's also how the spaces are programmed. You guys have a promenade. There are so many things that your economic development group or promoters of Belmar can do to take an asset like that and turn that into a public attraction. Again, restaurants, civic spaces, the amphitheater, all of these can create the experiences that people are looking for in their lives. Similarly, civic-focused spaces. Actually, you've got a good number of them. I think Belmar is a really rich fabric of civic space. This would certainly contribute to that. Places with soul, places where the younger set, maybe you guys are doing instant messaging all the time and Instagramming. I'm still playing catch up there. But when I talk to my 27-year-old daughter, this is what she wants to do. She wants to go someplace, take selfies, and send them to her friends. And that's just attractive to that generation, and it's good. Certainly, a project that offers places for quiet and relaxation, especially in a short community. And gathering spaces for family. I mentioned the hotel earlier. It's not just family, but there's, I think we've shown service clubs. Where do the Lions meet, or they're called Lions? I think that opportunities for people to gather strengthen the community. And so that's a big part of our program. Obviously, families. We couldn't resist the ice cream stand, because there's always an ice cream trip on our summer vacation. And people watching. And the idea that you could be out here on the promenade or in the hotel and just watch the pace of life go by every day and see who's showing up. Fascinating and a great way to pass the time. So we talk about who could use this, and we spoke about their interests. The real question is, well, what does this look like in Belmar? If I were sitting in the audience, that's a question I'd ask. And we feel that there's a need to take a moment and just point out that this project started with a proposal to replace the municipal building and add a gymnasium. Now, there are a variety of sites that have been considered for this, and we've actually done a layout specific to 16th Street, and we're able to provide a facility which will have new police facilities, new town hall, administrative offices. It's a two-story building, and frankly, you could drive up the turnpike and go to Wanacue, New Jersey, and you'd see a project very similar to the program you're talking about that we executed 2 years ago for the borough of Wanacue. So it is part of the RFP, and it's the intention to provide these facilities. And I think that there's ongoing dialogue about where they will be located. And this is particularly true with the gymnasium. I think there are options. Should it be with the elementary school, or should it be with this facility? I believe you have a process in place and leadership here that will help the community arrive at the right site for those facilities. But this represents, I think, the developer's commitment to the type of facility, the quality facility that you're looking for.
I have a question.
Sure.
That 16th Avenue site, now that's a brownfield.
Yes.
Okay, so can you explain a little bit more about what would be involved
Oh, sure.
in building on that site?
Yeah. That's, actually, I have lots and lots of brownfield experience in New Jersey. Anybody who's working professionally in New Jersey has brownfield experience. I would say, if that were the chosen site, you certainly have to go through phase 1 and phase 2 testing. You have to assess what's there, and then once you know what's there, you have to come up with the remediation plan. And then New Jersey has a process through the Department of Environment where you have a licensed remediation professional who oversees the process to get the site clean. I can also say that when I've done this for many, many corporations, there's a giant advantage to doing the cleanup at the same time as the new construction. Because that way you're not going back and testing twice, you're not making assumptions that turn out later to be wrong. And so it is in the interest of the community to do the cleanup at the time that that building moves forward. So you want an integrated process. And I can also say that, you know, there are different thresholds for remediation. You know, there's what we call commercial use, and then there's residential use. And commercial standard is a little lower than residential, but in no way should you think that means that there's still hazards there. When the state certifies that it's clean for these uses, it's clean. So, you know, I don't know today where exactly the municipal building will wind up.
Okay.
But when that time comes and the site's selected, of course, it has to be. I'll tell you what, one thing, I'm almost certain that the waterfront, if it hasn't been cleaned, it will need to be cleaned. And so it's an industrial waterfront. There's 100 years of people, you know, changing the motor oil on the boat motor. And so, you know, there's a process, and there are definitely state-defined standards that we will respect.
I'm sorry, I have one other question, because in your original proposal, that 16th Avenue site was mentioned. But 16th Avenue, we don't control that, that's a county road. And quite often in the summertime, that road is really backed up with traffic, coming and going out, coming to the beach. What kind of provisions would you make so that our emergency responders will be able to get to where they can get to and not be stuck
Yeah.
with that traffic?
No, that's a great comment. One of the things that attracted me to that site and how it laid out was that there was space for the emergency vehicle storage on that parcel, which is good. But I think, without having done traffic studies, I would say there's probably a signalization strategy that's gonna basically create, you know, the police will be able to control the signal, which will stop the cars and give them access.
You would work with the county to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I think, well, frankly, I would think that your permitting process would require that. So back to what all these places look like in Belmar. We thought we would just start with a description of the promenade. And what you're seeing on the left-hand side is a still photo of the promenade as we see it. It's got the senior residential building is blue, and that's to the right, and then a regular market rate building is in the white to the left. And then our the amphitheater. The amphitheater also has a dock master house. It's got public restrooms. We think that facing this amphitheater is a great place for the Arts Council because there should be retail lining the first floors of those two buildings that faces performance space. And what we would expect is that people will come here. This is like dog walking, 101. This is a perfect place to take your dog. It's a perfect place to go for a bike ride, especially with this promenade that goes 1.2 miles, but also a stretch that goes down Fifth to the ocean. I mean, it's not hard to envision the Belmar Marathon doing a loop that runs around this. And then, obviously, concerts. We think it would be pretty neat. We're proposing a touch pool. that is actually down at water level on floating docks in the Shark River. So there's an educational component to this as well.
Is there envisioning a space for the Belmar Council?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That was one of my concerns.
If you ask me, that's a natural. I mean, it's a good thing. It's, you know, it's motherhood and apple pie. And it's not very big. So here's a fly through of our promenade. And this shows you coming up from Fifth. One of the things about this project that struck us is that Fifth Street is one of the few streets that reaches from the beach to your downtown. And what we really love about it is the idea of putting the lighthouse as part of the structure as a beacon for those folks heading up Fifth to mark their arrival downtown and sort of introduce them to the rest of the promenade. I had to laugh when my team members did this. They put my mother-in-law in. I can't tell her that though. So this is the touch pool that we're talking about. You know, ramps, obviously accessibility to the water is something that we've learned in Baltimore actually. Dockmaster House, public piers. And then the amphitheater. And we're very much aware of the connection sort of under the Route 35 bridge over to the marina and the extension of the promenade. So, what's our hotel look like in Belmar? How does this work? So there it is. What we're talking about is 108 keys. In hotel language, they call rooms keys. And sometimes they will combine two rooms so that you have the suite, but that's still one key. But it's 100 rooms is the target, so we're pretty much right on target. It's provided with parking for the rooms and also for the conference center. The hotel is going to allow this community to do things it couldn't do before. The conference center has a 200-person ballroom. It also has 4 meeting rooms that will support anywhere from 20 to 25 people each. Ultimately, it's about 13,000 square foot of function space, including pre-function, which will all be served by the hotel's restaurants. And so it's something that will be here and going strong in February, as well as in July is easy. It's February that you want to make sure that it can be an attraction and bring people to your town and be self-sustaining. Some of our references for what this hotel will look like come from other very, very successful beachfront communities. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Block Island, anyone here, but their downtown has 4 grand old hotels. People take the ferry to Block Island, they don't have a car, they get off the ferry with a suitcase, and they walk up the street and they go in a hotel. And then they hang out on the porch, and that porch sits above the retail, and they eat in the restaurants on the street. And in 2020, this has been going on for 150 years there. So it works, and it's attractive. The other thing that we see from this is a wide variety of shapes along the roof. Big dormers, eaves, mansard roofs, turrets, all these things are really important to making the scale of this building fit in your community. To the left, you'll see a project that we did, that I was involved with a while ago, actually about 10 years ago, in Cambridge, Maryland. This is a Hyatt Regency. This is much bigger than what we're proposing. But it's a good way to illustrate how you can take the traditional elements that you see in the Block Island Hotel and translate them to our time. And so again, you'll see the dormers, you'll see balconies, you'll see towers, you'll see roof shapes. All of these things are very, very important to create an authentic place in your town. A couple more that I just wanted to throw in part because I love that red roof. This is actually the Spring House Hotel in Block Island was listed by GQ as the best place to have a gin and tonic in North America. And I can tell you that that lawn, every night at 5 o'clock, those seats are filled with people, just families, just people enjoying each other's company and seeing the ocean view. The porch fills up, they've got a super restaurant. These are the same kind of qualities that we want to develop in Belmar. The picture on the right in Cape May, I like because it's a U-shaped building. And so when you are inside that courtyard, whether most everybody in that hotel has a water view. And that space inside that U is a great activity space. And when you see the plan again, you see we're trying to do the same thing. Let's talk a little bit about markets and restaurants. The project has about 65,000 square foot of retail on its ground floors. We think, well, more than think, we believe there's a lot of interest by retailers and merchants. And so we've been talking to grocers who can provide us with, a really good greengrocer, a really good access to fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. We certainly think that Mr. Klein would be a natural to have fish market over here. We think that when we've spoken actually to Kilwin's chocolatier, we think there's also, it would be very nice to have a bakery in downtown. So these are all real tenants that would really like to be here because it's just a great location, great demographic. The intention is to reinforce Main Street and that corner with 7th with these types of uses. Again, we want to promote a walkable downtown. We want to have a lot of merchants. So there's certainly going to be space for locals as well. But we also want to add to what you have here today. And these are the types of things that we've heard there's a desire for. So this, and forgive me, this is, my young intern drives really fast, and he likes fast cars. So this is a very speedy fly-through, and it's lined with Ferraris. But this is coming down 7th Street, and you'll see on the first floor of that building, that's a senior residential building. That's retail space there. And then we have our building on the corner of 7th and Main, and that will be the market on the first floor, anchoring this corner right here, and then the bakery and the chocolate shop sort of stretching down Main Street. Now we're heading up Main Street towards the bridge, and in a minute we'll come to 6th Street, and we'll take a quick glimpse down 6th. Neat thing about this vista is that it opens right up onto the amphitheater, and so I think it's a nice vista. I think it's going to indicate activity going on. And then we continue down Main Street, hotel on the left, and then the residential building on the left, towards the bridge. And then a view of the hotel.
So we're looking at 4 or 5 stories, but everything meets the height requirements of the Seaport redevelopment plan?
Everything recognizes the 40-foot eave datum that it identifies.
Yeah.
But like some of those hotels, that's the eave,
Mm-hmm.
and dormers and balconies will rise up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, in a minute, I'll give you more information about heights,
Okay.
but I can answer that directly. So, the residential. Let's talk a little bit about what we're hoping to provide here. We think there's a building that they could serve the community's need for senior residential. This building has 136 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. All of the amenities that you would expect in a contemporary building. Security, fitness, amenity spaces, rooftop pool, well-appointed kitchens and baths. And then also this idea that it's linked by transit, and that it's convenient to all the other activities in this development, but up and down Main Street. Then we have market rate housing. Again, we have pretty much the same narrative. There's no big difference in our products. But 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, you know, nice units, good kitchens, accessible, and then benefit from the transit and its convenience. You can see the interior courtyards. You actually have a good amount of this similar type of project in town that's all pretty recent. And so we'll just try and make ours feel like it fits in a little better. Some of which here is really good. And then obviously the amenities that people just come to expect, whether it's common kitchens, home theaters, you know, office center, these are the types of amenities that residential developers are providing all over the place. And there's no reason why they shouldn't provide them here. So this is actually, this is a view, whoops, this animation sort of takes us back out the way we came in. And then we'll talk a little bit about numbers. One of the things I will say, when the RFP came out, when we first looked at the program, we read that 40-foot eve data. And the first thing we realized is we don't want to have one 6-block monolithic building. We really need to break this up into smaller pieces so that it doesn't overwhelm the scale of your town. And so that's why you'll see a lot of buildings, some are low, some are high, there's breaks between the buildings. It's all about making it feel more comfortable with the surrounding neighborhoods. So we'll talk a little bit about parking, always fun, right? So each building is designed, the project is designed in its totality with 900 parking spaces, give or take, 906, of which about 100 of those are surface street parking. The rest are garages inside the buildings, hidden from view, but very easily accessible. All of the garages right now are in and towards 7th Street. The intention, which will be sort of confirmed with traffic experts, is to basically, we want to get people from Route 35 into these garages as quickly as we can with a minimum of interference with the community. And so we think there are a couple different ways that we can do some street improvements and intersection changes that we can do that. So for our market and retail, again, in building 1, which has the oval around it, that's our hotel and also a residential building. And in the first floor, we've got the commercial retail, including a food hall, a seafood hall. We're thinking there's a seafood restaurant there that works with the hotel. And then there's a conference center. Those two uses together, about 45,000 square feet. We think actually the code for parking we've met, we actually have exceeded it because we think you're underparked for your commercial uses. But at the same time, we think you're actually overparked for some of your residential. So as we work with the community, we'll find that way to balance parking needs. But then in addition to the meeting the requirements of the code, there's actually extra spaces. So we've got 68 extra garage spaces provided, which will be helpful. Block 2, this is where we could see the greengrocer or the food market, as well as additional retailers, the bakery, the chocolate shop, basically wrapping this corner of 7th Street and Main. And again, there's 21,000 square foot of commercial space with just a ton of parking. 93 spaces in the garage, 56 on street, way beyond what would be the norm. And then also a smaller amount of retail in building 3. I think it's 10,000 square feet. And it's a little bit narrower, but still there will be people that want to take advantage of this development. In terms of the hotel, 108 rooms, 135 garage spaces. Basically, the codes typically say one space per room, but because we have the conference center, we also want to provide additional spaces there, as well as for employees. And then in building 1, we also have 105 residential units. We're providing 210 parking spaces. My guess is that you probably only use about 150 of those, and so that's just provides more parking in those peak times of year. And then block 2, residential, 130 units. Again, by code, we've shown we can provide 260 parking spaces. They'll never be all filled. And so I think it's an opportunity for the community to figure out how to reallocate.
Are these spaces that the public can use, or is it only for the people in the building?
So what we have these big several garages. And so if you own a unit or rent a unit there, you will certainly get one parking space in that garage. And then depending on the market and the interest and the demand, you could get a second space or not. In which case, we've also provided public parking for all the other uses in this development. So the parking for the retail is covered in this garage, and so we've tried to be generous with parking. And then building 3, 136 senior units, and for the seniors we did one space per unit. And again, I think about my 83-year-old mom, and she's got 3 bedrooms and 1 car. Oh, before we run off, you'll see that the last notes on this slide talking about heights. So, again, we wanted to break up the mass of these buildings. We didn't want this to seem oppressively large. And so what we said is, there's 2 places that we should have the building be taller than that 40-foot parapet. The first is the hotel. Hotel is a signature building for your community. It's facing the river, and when you come over that bridge, we went up 10 foot. We can still keep an eve at 40, but what it means is at the top floor you'll have dormers where those units are. The other place that we went taller was actually with the senior building. We went 2 floors higher because we felt that the bridge, the Route 35 bridge, is so huge that we actually wanted to do something to put it in scale. I was going to say conceal it, but you're not going to conceal the bridge. But having a building that is of a similar size next to it helps make it seem less prominent. So the blue building is 2 stories tall. So the eve height on the senior housing, we could do something at 40, but we're going up to 69 to 70, the hotel 49 to 51, and typical 39 to 40. This will all be a part of the discussion with the planning board. But you understand our intentions from the standpoint of urban design. Oh, and that's the presentation. I think you're seeing a submission by the DOPCO team that really takes the community's interests quite seriously, wants to do right by Belmar, and we look forward to the process. Anything to add? Good?
I have some more questions.
So we will make the presentation available to the Belmar's attorney, and they can decide how they want to distribute it. Yes, sir.
What is the plan for Doughboy Park?
So it's interesting. We actually don't want to touch it. I mean, there are ways you can improve it, and actually making the promenade a more vital and used kind of pedestrian experience will help Doughboy Park. There was about a half an hour where we thought, well, we could get rid of Doughboy Park so that we could build a road there. But we don't really want to do that. We don't have to do that. So Doughboy Park, as we believe, its footprint doesn't have to change, but there would be an opportunity to tie it into all the other public attractions to make it something more meaningful for more people.
I know you talked about easing local traffic congestion, but how would that be done with access on and off of Route 35?
right? Obviously, we're gonna have traffic consultants in here to help us with this. But the key to easing the traffic flow is the 7th Street intersection. 8th Street is, let me think about this. Yeah, well, 7th Street and 8th Street together have to work in concert to get people to 35. So we think that there needs to be a cross-connect from 7th to 8th, and then re-signaling of 8th, so that we can make sure that we have the stacking space for people coming in and leaving, and then we can coordinate the movement of vehicles at that intersection. But we think that block actually has a lot of value in terms of giving people a place to wait while the light changes, that right now we're not able to do. So the thinking when we talk to the traffic guys will be, here are the traffic counts, here are our peak times of demand. Let's figure out what we can do to make this situation better. And again, part of it has got to be getting people who are going to come here and shop or live to arrive and get out of their car and walk. That's absolutely where you start in managing traffic movements and traffic.
And that would be the same with parking also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to do a whole parking study to make sure peak times,
Yeah.
especially if that commuter boat comes into play, there might have to be some more parking.
So one of the things about parking is everybody wants parking, but nobody wants too much parking. It doesn't help anybody to have empty parking garages in their downtown, and I can take you to places where that's happened, and it's terrible. So our challenge is to find the right balance, address the traffic concerns, provide the parking, particularly deal with the issues during peak season. And I think what we know from our exercise so far is that there's space on the site to meet the demand. And then the next step is actually connect the garages to the highway. And that's very much a part of the project.
Now, one other thing, I saw that you had pools and greenery, and they would be on top of the parking garage?
Yeah, let's just take a quick detour and discuss where amenities and sustainability overlap. So sustainability has reshaped the construction industry from top to bottom. And 10 years ago, I'm a lead accredited professional. I haven't built a project which isn't LEED certified in some manner since 2001. And what's happened is techniques and materials, construction methodologies have adopted sustainable practices. So that as soon as you put carpet down, that's made from recycled materials. Concrete, recycled aggregate. When you do lighting nowadays, everybody lights with LEDs because the payback's so cheap and it uses so much energy, so much less energy. Electric cars aren't something that our kids are going to inherit. They're here. So of course the garage is going to charging stations. We are inherently a sustainable strategy by virtue of being on this site downtown served by multiple modes of transit. It is not a big leap for this project to be a very sustainable project, and that just benefits the community. So a part of that is green roofs. We'll do green roofs. Well, it's not like the whole roof will be green, but there will definitely be green roofs. And those you don't want to walk on, they tend to be sedums, but all of our residential buildings and the hotel will take advantage of those upper roof decks for swimming pools, for grilling stations, for places to walk your dog. So yes, one of the things about those pools, so they sit above the garage, and the garage has ramps. So we've located the pools where we have the most clearance above the ramp. So that there's thoughtfulness given to how we can provide these amenities in a way which works with the structure of the building. I mean, I think that the amenity package that we've shown to the residents is pretty much the standard these days for residential development. And I just think that so is sustainability, and in a lot of ways they overlap.
Can you provide some more details about this ferry and how that will run?
So here's what we know, or here's what we think at this point in time, because it's early days in the ferry. We know there's a lot of interest by ferry operators. One of them is Circle Line. There's a variety of different types of boats. We know that the draft in the Shark River is 7 foot. We know that the biggest ferry boats actually have a 7-foot draft. We know that there's space within the Shark River to be able to dock a boat outside of the sea lanes. So we think that from a physical standpoint, it can fit. Whether it's 100 passengers or 40 passengers or 400 passengers, we have to work out with the operator. I think their job of assessing demand is going to really determine the size of the ship. But we know that the Shark River Inlet right there, right up here, right between the bridges, is big enough for turning radius, plenty big for turning radius, especially since these boats have four props and they can spin on a dime. A question about the ferry naturally comes a question about parking. Where are these people, where are they coming from, where are they parking? You know, this could be a great sort of jumping off point for day trippers up to Manhattan. And so we have to provide the parking in this project for that ferry. So that's in the works. I just couldn't tell you right now, without doing the study with the operator, how many spaces to provide. So that's where having an overage in the parking can help us. So I think for us, as a development team, we're continuing discussions with the operator, and they'll get a better sense of the market for this, and coming together, we'll be able to be more specific about the size of the boat and its requirements on, in future meetings. So I think what we did is just sort of define the basic physical parameters right now.
Pat, you have a question?
We have an aging infrastructure, and this is a lot of building. Will you be addressing that? That's pretty important.
Well, yes, the answer is yes. The building, the toilets have to flush and people have to get water. There's a basic level of like human health concerns that your infrastructure serves. There's absolutely a requirement. And I don't know about, the sewage system here. So I think, more study is required to make sure we have the right system, but the developer is committed to providing, a good infrastructure.
Thank you.
Being right next to the river like that, what's your approach to stormwater management?
So, all over the place, what we see more and more is a desire to treat runoff on site before it migrates to waterways. And so, when we look at that promenade, again, it's not just a sidewalk. It's actually an opportunity for bioswales. It's not exotic. A bioswale is just like a big kind of hole in the sidewalk that can fill up with water. But the great thing is that it allows the water to filter out, and it allows you to reduce the stormwater impact of projects. I think that, I think we also can capture a lot of rainwater on roofs, and that's where the green roof thing comes in. So I think it would be smart to intercept as much stormwater as possible before it rolls into the Shark River.
Another question. Have you considered what contingencies you might, this goes in, it's going to be there a long time, so what's your approach going to be to sea level rise? Because the water's definitely getting deeper.
So I did a bunch of Actually, I was one of the people designing New York City's sea level rise response. That was a project by the Barker Ingalls Group, and my company at the time was doing the engineering. And so my job was to take the ugly engineering and make it sort of, socially friendly, and so that things didn't look just like an engineered structure. So I believe strongly that resiliency strategies can be built into the architecture of your town in a way that you don't think of them as dams, or you don't think of them as dikes, but they become parks, they become open space, become landscape pieces, they become recreational spaces. So that's the philosophy. So some areas we let flood. Like if the amphitheater area floods, that's just fine. And in fact, again, my experience in Baltimore, the amphitheater floods. Maybe twice a year, maybe 6 inches. It's not the end of the world because then the water goes back. That's a strategy that people are employing all over the place. Playing fields. So I think that's a key thing. We've also we lift the buildings up. I've shown them at 12 foot. I believe your flood level in this town and this location is 11 foot. So at a minimum, you need to be a foot above the flood line. Whether we go higher actually introduce some other issues, because there's an accessibility issue getting into the buildings, and we want to avoid steps going into public buildings. So there's a balance. There is an elevation. It will manage flood and sea level rise, and then we just have to figure out what that is when we're from. The other thing, so this assumes that each one of the 3 garages has about 1/3 of one level that goes down to elevation 5. And that's okay, because parking garages are allowed to actually have water come into them. We just have to make provisions to move the cars. And sometimes you get some floating cars in the garage. But generally, that is an accepted use in a flood zone. Does that help?
Yeah. All right. I have one other question. All right. It's a beautiful looking plan. What I would be concerned about if it goes in and it's as great as it sounds like it's going to be, how do we keep that from cannibalizing our other businesses that are further down Main Street? How do we make sure that we get people from here all the way down to there? I mean, the idea is to help the whole town, right?
It's a classic question. It's a question that every community asks. And the real truth is that it doesn't. In fact, it attracts more people, which benefit all the other merchants. That you actually, it's not a zero-sum equation that says we're never going to get any more customers. In fact, when you bring a grocery or a market here and a food hall, you're going to have many more people walking up and down Main Street. And if you ask the person that's between 7th and 8th, they're going to say, that's great. I'm right across the street from the market. So again, getting people here, getting them out of their car, and having them, use Main Street like a shopping street is the goal. So I think also, and I don't know if Belmar has this, but there's a role for business district management. I think you may have, there are entities, there are organizations that will organize promotions, and they will take care of public safety and clean up and spruce up. And making sure that the public spaces here have activity. It's a management question too. But the goal is to treat this like a programmed attraction year-round for the citizens.
Would Donco be the managing agent for the residential units, or would you get somebody else?
We would probably partner up with an operator that does this on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you guys very much for coming down.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
George.
Guys. Hey, Alex, how are you, man? All right. How you doing?
The weather was nice.
That's the allowance. Crawl out of here. Crawl out of here.
Take care.
I need a Snickers.
Thank you, everyone. We still have some meeting to go through. I know there's going to be, if we decide to move forward with this project to see how it turns out, there's going to be a lot of changes between now and when it's actually built. There'll be a lot of discussion. Everything has to be studied as far as financial impact, traffic, parking, infrastructure. So it'll be a lot. The next move for us is to decide if we decide we want to go forward and explore more of the project. We would name them as a developer, but that would be just for the process to move forward. So we're not going to take any action tonight, but we're going to take a serious look at it, see if we think it's the best for Belmar, if it's something that we want to take a look at this area and really change this area. And there's some pluses to it. The seniors building, if everybody looks at it, the senior building's in a little bit of rough shape, and I would definitely like to see a new senior building for our seniors to go into. But so those are one of the things that we're looking at. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of everything, and then we'll look to move forward. But the next step in the process is we would name Dobco, because we haven't heard from the other developers yet. We're going to reach out to them to see if they want to present. Because we had two development companies answer the RFP, so we haven't heard from them, but we're going to reach out to them. And then, but naming the redeveloper just moves the project along, and there'll be a lot of changes. So we're going to take a look at it. All right, moving on. Does anybody in the room have petitions for us? All right, seeing none. Approval of the minutes, April.
I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st meeting.
Make motion.
Councilman Juan? Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Wolford?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Stay home, buddy.
All right, reports of council. Councilman McCracken?
Yes, last night there was a meeting of the Belmar Housing Authority. We welcomed our new commissioner, who was recommended by Mayor Pringle. Her name is Maria Massano. She is retired from the multi-unit housing division at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So she will bring a lot of institutional knowledge and background to the Housing Authority. So it was, we all had an opportunity to meet her last evening. They are wrestling with some challenges. The administration is there with some parking issues. One of the residents, unfortunately, had an infestation of bed bugs, which is being addressed, and of course the residents are concerned about that. That's our opportunity once a month to listen to the concerns of the residents and get together as a commission, as commissioners, and talk about, make sure our seniors are well cared for. Financially, the building is in good shape, and the administration is working on their 5-year plan. Shade Tree has been very active. We have a resolution tonight, which we're going to be addressing, moving Lynn Amari from the first alternate up to a full member of the Shade Tree Commission. And that group, frankly, has been revitalized. We have Anne Marie Drzenovic, Lynn Amari, and Greg Glesman, who have really become very active and are concerned about our trees in our town, which is great, along with our other commissioners. I sit on there as a member of the council, Matt Ruth Haller and Johnny Uguzi. So I'm happy to see that we're moving Lynn up to full-time commissioner, and those folks are really taking the beauty of our town, including air quality and all the things that the Shade Tree Commission addresses very seriously. So we're happy to have that active group working for us.
Thank you. Councilwoman Wong.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if any of you have watched the Kids Baking Championship on the Food Network, but we have a 12-year-old, Anthony Fontanez. He's a student, 7th grade student over at St. Rose. He got through to the 5th round, so we are kind of proud of him. A local boy does good on the cooking Food Network. It was very cute to see him bake. I know I've tried some of his macaroons. They really are delicious. So he did a great job. Also, the rec department is holding a 3-week baseball softball clinic for boys and girls grades 4 to 6. Registration deadline is Thursday, February 28th. And it's going to be limited space to the first 20 youngsters. So you can contact Barry Turgu here, or you can go to our website and pull up the community pass and you can sign there. Also, for the first time, we're having T-ball for 3.5 to 5-year-olds. Registration deadline on that is Sunday, March 15th. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking of the Belmar Arts Council, let's see, the current exhibit, Art and Nature, it closes on Friday. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I saw it myself. It's really some outstanding work. And they're all by members, a lot of people from our community. You know, the Arts Council has 365 dues-paying members, and they put on over 100 events a year. The gallery's open Wednesdays and Fridays from 11 to 3, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The next exhibit's going to be all fired up ceramics, and that's going to, well, the opening is going to be February 22nd, so the exhibit will probably open a couple of days before that. That's how they usually do it. Yeah, it opens on the 12th, and then goes till the 16th of March. And the movie fundraiser that I spoke about at the last meeting, they made $200. Good for them. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple things. If everybody can just remember Sunday at 3 o'clock, we are promoting our first female chief. Tina Scott is going to be promoted to chief of the police department, along as Mike Yee is being promoted from detective to sergeant, and James Groom is being, he's going to become a full-time patrolman. Right now he's a class 2 special, and we're moving him up to a full-time patrolman. So that's going to take place in the Belmar School, 3 o'clock on Sunday, if everybody can make it. And then the other thing that I have, St. Vincent de Paul Society's fundraiser is at the Taylor Pavilion Saturday night. So if anybody can make that and help them out. And that's my report. Move on to public session for any of the resolution items. All right, April.
Can I have a motion to close the public session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Councilman Vaughn?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
First ordinance is second reading and public hearing, and ordinance 2027. This is amending Chapter 19, traffic regulations. Anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this ordinance, please step forward.
All right, seeing none, April.
Can I have a motion to close ordinance amending, and deleting a section regarding interlocal programs. Would anyone like to speak on this ordinance? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Councilman Juan? Yes. Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Next, we have second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2020-04. This is vacating an easement between lot 137, lot 1. Would anyone on the public like to comment on this ordinance?
Yes, Mr. Kramer. You can stay probably back there. I can tell you what happened on that. It was an easement years ago that allowed our trucks in the borough yard to go across the property. Years ago, it was vacated, but it was never recorded on the deed. So the building's already built in the easement part of it, so we're just memorializing it and taking it off the deed. So hopefully that answers your question from the last meeting. But this was an easement on the deed from years ago, and it was vacated years ago, but nobody took it off the deed. So that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
All right, and thank you for bringing it up, so we know exactly what we have. All right, anyone else? All right.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Juan? Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
And last one is ordinance 2020-02, second reading and public hearing. This is an ordinance regarding replacement of small cell equipment and wireless poles in the public right-of-way. Would anyone like to comment on this ordinance?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Maria Montanaro, 1246 Pine Tree Way. I just wanted to follow up about this. If we are adding some cellular, can we please use credit cards for those who are accessing our daily beach badges? I think it would be very helpful for us. I do know that we get money as a town for the ATM machines, but my friends, my family, myself are paying every single time I put that card in. And I feel that we're in a time right now where people are paying on their phones, and that the use of cash, especially for the younger community, is becoming obsolete. And we're talking about new ways to grow Belmar, and we don't want to be going backwards. So I'm curious if this means that there's not that bandwidth issue that you had told me about. I think it was in June.
This has nothing to do with that. This is something that we have put in place for the right-of-way. We're still in negotiations to get the bandwidth up down the ocean. They come in with some pole designs that are just so ugly, we can't accept them. And so we're working on trying to work with all different companies to come up with a viable solution to make it look
So
aesthetically
this
pleasing.
isn't a way that we could add to the bandwidth?
No.
Okay.
And this is something we had to do about, from, I think, the state of New Jersey?
Federal government.
Federal government,
Okay.
yeah. We
Well,
have to put
I'm
this-
sorry for misunderstanding, but I still would really like some consideration. So is it definitely a bandwidth issue? Because I heard that perhaps it may not be. Is it
No, it
definitely
is, because
bandwidth?
on busy days, with everybody on their devices on the beach, we can't run our equipment, it keeps going out. And that was the problem, so even if they have credit cards, we can't even take them, and then they were walking all the way down to the 7-Eleven trying to use those ATMs. That's why we put them on the beach for convenience, because we were having the problem.
Right. Is
We
that because they were using?
We do have a couple more meetings with some of the cell companies, but as of all the things that they showed us right now, we don't want our beach, so we're chilling. We're trying to work with them so it's aesthetically pleasing and people aren't in this meeting screaming at us for putting something ugly up. So,
Understandable.
we're working on it. I think we have a meeting either, they canceled the meeting tomorrow.
We have me on 12.
On 12, yeah, so we are working on it, it's a big concern. I'd rather take it, believe me, I'd rather take the credit card. It's so much easier.
Okay. And that, was it an issue of the community pass that we couldn't get those credit cards? That if the community pass was the reason why we couldn't, it was too slow?
It still has to do with bandwidth.
It's still bandwidth, so I mean,
Because
if I use my Square on my
we're not
phone,
hardwired.
I'm gonna have that same issue?
We're not hardwired down in the pavilion down in Taylor at all. It's all
Yeah.
wireless.
Yeah, everything's wireless.
Okay,
Everything.
okay.
So we're working on it.
All right, yeah, continue to please
We're
work
working on it.
towards that. Thank you
Yeah,
very
no,
much.
We want to get it. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Kramer.
Gene Kramer, 4th Avenue. Let me just see if I got this straight. Placement of small cell equipment and wireless poles in the public right-of-way. I read through the whole thing. I read the entire document, and one thing did catch, by the way, I am familiar with, I read all the FCC's reports and orders. And there was quite a bit of strong language in there. But you have to understand, when the FCC does reports and orders, it's nationwide. So what applies in Belmar also applies in Kansas. And of course, the situation's quite a bit different here in populated areas. One thing that caught my eye of concern is that there's the borough, the telecommunications companies are going to have to indemnify the borough. I guess that, probably a general liability insurance policy. Now, I certainly want the borough to be protected. However, what's going to be done for the adjoining property owners? I see in the ordinance here, sidewalk is considered public right-of-way. What protection there is for the adjoining property owners? Anytime somebody gets hurt on a sidewalk here in Belmar, they don't sue the town, they sue the adjoining property owner. I've had 2 neighbors within the last couple of years that have gotten dinged. People apparently have gotten hurt on the sidewalk. I don't know what happened to them, but they're faced with lawsuits. I guess my question is here is, why isn't there any protection being built into this to protect property owners that own property along the public right-of-way? These things are going to be constructed, apparently, these poles, somewhere between the sidewalk and the curb. What's being done to protect the property owners? And why can't the adjacent property owners be indemnified, just as the borough is?
Mr. Kramer, the poles are going to be on borough property. That's why the Belmar's being indemnified. I think most of the sidewalks are actually in public property. I don't know. So, did you
Yes, the sidewalks are on public property.
So that's Belmar property.
Absolutely.
For that
Well, the borough has an easement with the street, at least north of 12th Avenue.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think there's any reason that the telecommunication companies are going to be on private property. If they're damaged to poles or someone gets hurt while they're putting these facilities on the poles, we will be the Belmar, which owns the poles or owns the property where the poles are, will be indemnified. So I don't know why or they should or how they would indemnify every homeowner, every property owner. They won't even be on their property.
You see, though, what happens in Belmar, it might be different than other areas. In Belmar, although property owners don't own the sidewalk,
Right.
they're held responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah.
And if somebody gets hurt on that sidewalk, they sue the adjoining property owner.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I can tell you, like I said, within the last couple of years,
if they damage the sidewalk, they're gonna have to fix it. That's what part of the indemnity is all about. If someone is personally hurt while they're doing that work, they'll also have to, indemnify the town to take care of it, but they're not gonna be on anybody's private property. If they damage the sidewalk, they're gonna have to fix it,
Okay.
okay?
One other question here, and I think it's just a typo. First page, bottom of the page. The title of the ordinance is Placement of Small Cell Equipment and Wireless Poles in the Public Right-of-Way. Down at the bottom of page 1, it says, entitled Wireless Communication Towers and Antennas.
Okay, I'll look it over and I'll change that title.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, Trina, come on up.
Thank you. Katrina Klapsis, B Street. I have like a little bummer of a question, I guess. Sorry to be a bummer on such a lovely night, but a couple months ago, you guys passed an ordinance about combining all of the bonds.
Wait a minute, you're speaking, we're still on the cell. We
Oh.
got to close, this is
All
not
right,
public.
I'll be
public
back.
comment.
I'll be back, I'm sorry. I'll go to public session.
There you go.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Motion.
Councilman Wong?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Wilspers?
Yes,
Councilman Pataki?
yes. Okay. Now you go.
Hi, I'm back. Okay, so back to that, a couple months ago, I guess it was back in November, I don't even remember when it was, but you guys were going to combine all of the bonds into one bond, all these notes and bonds and everything, right? Was that accomplished?
I'm not sure that it was finished, our CFO is not here this evening. I don't know that it's been combined.
I think that was when we were buying cars and different police cars and stuff throughout the year, and then at the end, we
No, it was
We
like
paid-
taking, like you said, it was like 19 or 20 bonds. that
You were
gonna-
talking about consolidating the $30 million.
Consolidating.
debt. Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah, I don't think we can consolidate that, because so much is in the water department, so much is on the beach, so much is in the general. But I think what you're talking about is throughout the year, we were doing small stuff to buy the equipment that we needed, and then at the end of the year, we were trying to.
No.
You're talking about what you saw out there as far as the 58 million versus the.
Well, I'm wondering if that had something to do, because the debt statement came out and it was like, so I was wondering if these things overlapped, what was that?
It pays down the debt is what it does. And Christine Manilio is not here tonight, but
Right.
she will have an answer for you tomorrow. She's better well versed to explain it
Okay.
tonight, what they're doing, because it feeds
They
off
do
the
have
other.
something to do
When the
with
debt
each
service
other,
comes
though?
due, it
Okay,
has to be paid down because it comes due. So the right thing to do is to pay that off and pay that down.
okay.
So I spoke to her briefly tonight. She'll be in tomorrow, and we're happy to get the answer.
Yeah, okay, great, because when I saw the debt statement, I was kind of like,
Right.
oh my God, I started to hyperventilate. But I
That's
thought
not-
it might have something to do with the.
We don't want you to have a penalty.
Okay, thanks.
So just to
talk, but reach out to her.
follow up, because I think that that's a very good question.
Right.
And I'm sure Katrina's not the only one
No question about it.
in the audience who has this question. So I think it's, obviously good public service that Christina's going to get in touch with. Christina's going to get in touch with Katrina tomorrow. But can we make sure we bring that up at the next meeting and put it on the
Right.
agenda so we can?
We'll actually
make sure
have, I'll
everybody
see if
gets
Christine will be
information.
available. What you do at the end, just give me your number, we'll make sure we call you tomorrow, and then we'll get that for the workshop for the next meeting.
For the next meeting, that would be terrific.
Okay, so just in the
Yeah,
afternoon.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, public session? Yes, John?
John Walsh, Avenue B Street. The Seafood Festival, moved up to town because of Ocean Avenue, but Ocean Avenue is going to be closed this year because of the bridge. Did you guys take that into consideration? Because all that detour traffic is going to be going through the town, 10th Avenue and whatever. So, you know, I know we're not
It's
going
going
to
to be opened and
I know,
before the seafood
it's
festival.
going to be open before that, because
Yes.
it said it's not going to be open until Labor Day.
No.
Memorial Day.
No, it's going to be,
Yeah.
the date that it's supposed to be open is May 18th. And the
Okay.
seafood festival is the following weekend, so we should be in good shape. I've been in constant contact with the county. They said they're ahead of schedule, so hopefully we're going to have a good result.
Okay, well, you know, somebody brought it to my attention, I was like, wow, that's going to be a
Yeah,
cluster.
yeah, no, we're watching it, so.
Okay, thanks, that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Angela, 54319 Fifth Avenue. I know the presentation we saw tonight is very, very preliminary, but I'm confused. How many blocks is it taking? So it's not just this area that we're standing in now? It's going all the way down to Fifth?
No, it's 7th to the river where Klein's is.
Okay, because it said the entrance to the hotel on Fifth.
No, 35, I think.
No, it's Main and 5th would be the entrance to the hotel.
Where Strollo's is.
Yes.
We're
So Strollo's is gone.
That building's gone.
No, there's gonna be a space for them.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna be part of it.
going to be part of it.
So the paint store is gone. So that whole block is gone, Doughboys,
Yes.
Yes.
but that's not borough property.
No, this is the borough property. This is where they were extending it to 7th Avenue.
So is Klein's also gone?
Klein's is going into the new space.
So how are we taking over all this property? Is it eminent domain?
No,
We,
no,
we
the
as
three,
the- we as the developer are in negotiations with those property owners to extend the vision from taking the municipal property and creating a unified redevelopment. So
Okay.
we're taking the initiative to reaching out to those property owners and negotiating with them to acquire their property so we can transform this whole area.
Right, because there's several property owners involved, so,
this was, the 3 property owners in that section. They were already in negotiations before they even come to us.
okay.
So they wanted to get together and redevelop everything from 6th to the river. And then when DOPCO come in and took a look at it, they said, would we consider the next block because of the commuter boat, and they needed extra parking, and there was some other things put into it. So we said, you know, we went out for the RFP,
Okay,
because it's public property, to see what kind of development would take place. And tonight we saw what their vision is from 7th Avenue to the river, and it's on that side, yeah.
okay,
And they're gonna make the walkway along the river and change all that.
okay. And one of the ideas for the location of the new municipal complex, you mentioned 16th Avenue? I just, what, did
Well,
you-
we're taking a look at taking a little bit of Borough Yard and a little bit of Dempsey Park, because of,
By Dempsey Park.
and that's only preliminary, because we're only looking at different areas for the parking. We have a lot of people that in the summertime that we need parking for the employees during the day. So,
Right,
you know, any space that we're taking a look at, we're gonna take the parking into big consideration, so. That's why we only took a look at that space. That is just so preliminary. You know, we're looking at a lot of different spaces.
I just didn't know when they said 16th, I didn't know where on 16th. I
Yeah,
just wanted
okay.
clarification.
Yeah, well, we're looking at Dempsey Park because of the parking during the day, and then they could use the parking at night for other things, so.
Okay, and one more question. How many total residential units are being added?
We have numbers all over the place.
There's so many seniors, and
So we have 136 senior units, and then we have 130 plus 105, so 235 market rate units. So it's a total of 375 residential units, yeah.
And the current senior building is staying or is being replaced?
well, the the senior building right now is, if you ever walk through it, that's where we're taking a look at the seniors, because we can move the seniors into a new space, and we could add a lot to it for more. We have a long list for seniors to get into that building.
So would this senior building be bigger than the current senior building?
Yes.
Yeah, there's only 50 units in the one, and this is 137 units for this one.
Okay, so the senior building we have now is disappearing.
Could be, could be.
Let me just say, I'm a member of the Belmar Housing Authority. We had our meeting last night, and there's been no discussions between the developer who made the presentation tonight and the commissioners of the Belmar Housing Authority. So, a lot of work still needs to be done.
No, I understand, sir, but I was just confused as to the scope of it.
Yeah, so it's like 7th Avenue up to the river, where Klein's is, and that's the whole scope.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Oh, all right. You're next.
Hi, I'm John Jr. At B Street. I have two questions for you guys. So how much, and you guys as well, how much say do we have in this project if there's 3 other owners? And can this project move forward without us, like without the municipal properties? Like, is this gonna happen, could this happen anyway if we don't get this building and this this area of the?
Can't happen here.
I understand, but it's still gonna happen in the town. That's what, right?
It could happen from, the 3 owners still could get
Yeah.
together and do 6th Avenue to the river.
Okay, so I mean, that's what I meant. So how much of this relies on a council vote to pass?
Well, I think either way.
Is it like a
we could be naming them as the redeveloper to move forward and see if it's all gonna be, so if Dobco's named as the redeveloper, then we start the process. This, tonight was all information, it was their vision. There's gonna be a lot of changes to it if we do move forward. And we might name them as the redeveloper to move forward, just to see, is it gonna be good for Belmar, and take a look at the whole project. If you look at this area here, up to the river, it would really be nice to have it revitalized.
No,
So-
I agree. I just want to know what the logistics are. And second, the Seafood Fest. It is the 15th through the 17th, so if the bridge is opened on the 18th, that's afterwards. Just as
Wait, it was the week before, I might have got the date wrong.
That's fine.
It's the week before.
I've been thinking about this for a long time because
when they were.
I mean, even the St. Patrick's Day parade, I tell my friends to come in through Avon, that means Ocean Avenue's closed,
Well,
essentially.
Well, through Avon, just come back and left at 5th.
Yeah, well, yeah, or go through Spring Lake. All right, thank you.
We're doing the best we can. The bridge is ready to break, so. Yes.
Francine Forte, 8th and A. I'd just like to know what the update is and about the exercise program. When is it going to resume and a location? Has that been established?
Business Administrator, Treasurer Bell?
We continue to try to come up with a solution of how we're going to either bid it out or hire somebody. We're working with all the things that we have in the community center, makerspace and the programs. I know that there's a program right now at the Phoenix that one of the instructors are doing the same thing. So we're trying to get everything together to see the proper way so we can get. The problem is people were using our facilities without the proper legal representation. So we weren't allowed to do that. So we're trying to figure out something, whether it be a borough employee or something. We're actually looking for volunteers right now because we want to do something for our seniors and for the people that were involved. We're having a tough time, although we might have one person that wants to volunteer their time to teach the program. Once we have somebody to teach us the program, we have Telepavilion all ready to go for the program. A better spot could not be had to have a yoga program. But the problem is we can't let people make money just off the borough here without any overhead or anything like that. It's got to be properly bid out, so we're working on it.
Well, why can't the people pay a fee to pay the instructor?
So then the person is utilizing our facility as a business. The instructors told me that the reason why they got out of having a business is so they don't have to pay the overhead. So we're giving them free overhead. It's not the right, you can't do that. Anybody that bids in town, just like the volleyball on the beach, they were using it for years on Tuesday nights. They made a lot of money, but they used our beach at no bid. We made them bid on it. So we're trying to do things illegally. That's what we're trying to do. If we have people that want to volunteer, they can volunteer, we're not going to charge anything, we'll put them right in the Talc Pavilion. It's not about money making, it's about the legality of what we're trying to do here.
Well, if someone pays $4 and $2 goes to the town and $2 goes to the instructor, isn't that paying?
But we
for
have
the
to,
site?
We have to go out for bid for that,
Okay.
because, yeah, there could be other people that do it cheaper, so you have to go out for public bid.
Okay.
And anybody that's getting, that is collecting money from people,
Okay.
and they make a profit, we have to go out for bid.
Okay.
I asked some of the instructors if they were so concerned about the seniors in the program. I said, if you're that concerned, because I'm that concerned also, would you volunteer your time? They said, well, we don't make any money that way.
They're not.
That's my point.
Right.
It's the same thing.
No one
as-
wants to work for nothing.
Right, and exactly right, but we have to follow the law.
Remember when they had to bid on yoga at the beach? They would have to come and bid every summer to be able to do yoga on the beach. It's the same thing. It's public property, and we're not allowed to just let people use it to make money for themselves without the community benefiting as well.
So do we need to put it out of our RFP for that, or?
We're trying to do the best that we can with trying to be as fair as we can, because the rates are $65 an hour, $55 an hour, those were the rates. So we're trying to get the best solution possible, so we're doing things legally.
What's $65 an hour? The rental space?
No, the instructors were charging $65 an hour.
Oh, wow.
$75 an hour, $65 an hour, $55 an hour, with no overhead.
Wow.
So you just can't do that.
Right.
And I feel for everybody. We're trying to get programs together down there with Talc Pavilion, because it is a beautiful building. We want to try to do it.
Right.
If anybody knows any volunteers, I would love to speak to them that have the credentials to teach yoga, but nobody wants to work for nothing.
No, I don't get it.
Right,
Right, okay.
thank you.
Shane, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'd like to thank the guys from DOPCO for hanging around in case there was any questions, so thank you guys. And,
Motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting?
make the motion.